Hi, so this is our project for Bettering Butte, and this is for Jim O'Neill for the OK to see if we can take this into 6th grade classrooms in Butte School District number 1. Hi, so this is a project about civics and government that we hope to bring to 6th graders. I am Jackson Maloney, this is Nik Zora, and this is Isaiah Weldon. We are all seniors in high school, Butte High School, and we are in Bergman's AP government class, which this is for. We've all gone to Boise State, and that is really one of the major reasons that we're interested in this topic, and because we believe that the more kids can get involved with government, the better they will be in the long run, and the more of an effect they can have on government.
What we'll be doing today, we will be learning about citizenship and civics, learning about the government here in the United States. The class will be forming its own government. And we will wrap it up with what you can do to help your local government here in Butte.
So, what are civics? The study of the rights and duties of citizens is the definition of civics. And really the word to emphasize there is the citizens, because it's about really what are the rights and what are the duties of the citizens of the people in the United States and the kids like you that'll be in this classroom if they were 6th graders. So, we are all citizens currently of Butte Silver Bow County. We're citizens of the state of Montana, and we're citizens of the United States of America. And so, when we talk about our citizenship, it's important that we know that we do have certain rights in the United States. And these are rights like our right to vote, our right to freely assemble with groups, and our right to freedom of speech, and our right to privacy. And this list goes on and on and on about all the rights that private citizens of the United States have. But what is most important that we need to remember today is that citizens also have duties to their country because of these rights that we're allowed. It's something that we have to kind of give back to it, to paying it forward. So we have the duty to pay taxes to our government. We also have, when you do grow up, the duty for jury duty, where you have to go and serve on a jury in a court. And then there's also just the general duty that we have to do good for the country, city, and state. And then in that respect, too, as citizens, we do also have a duty to be informed about who we're voting for and about our government as a whole. And so, as former President John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He said this in 1961, but it still applies today. It's important that we as citizens, even in 6th grade, go out and try to do good things for the community and try to help out our city and our government. And so when it comes to going out and doing things like community service, helping to keep the town clean, even just mowing your lawn is something that you can do that is a representative of having a good civic, being a good civic citizen in the city and the state that you live in. Now, helping out fellow citizens is another part of being a good citizen in the community. And really giving back to Butte and giving back to the state in general is something that's going to be good for your citizenship and good for society as a whole. So when we're talking about this, keep in mind that no matter what age you are, there's multiple community service opportunities that you can take all throughout town. You can go and help and volunteer and have a ton of fun doing it. And then just keeping the town clean. When you see that piece of trash on the sidewalk, pick it up and bring it to the garbage can, because it's just something that's a good thing to do, and it's part of being a good citizen.
This is you. He double tapped. Here. No, just hit one.
You need to be involved with the government. Each citizen has a right to vote, and you should really express your right to vote because every vote counts. And you could attend council meetings and bring ideas to your local government, and aid with local campaigning for your favorite candidates that you want to get elected.
So this section would be a question where we would kind of bribe kids if they got a correct answer about one of these questions. They're currently, if you have any other ideas of questions here, we'd greatly appreciate them. This is just something to kind of break it up so we keep them interested in the whole project as a whole. So democracy and its core ideals. So the American people believe in democracy, and it's something that we've had for quite a while. So the definition of democracy is actually a government based off equal representation of people in the government. Now, that would be a democracy in the directest sense, but what we have is more of a republic, where people vote for what they believe the people that represent them will do. So really the core ideal of democracy is that every voice is heard and equal. Every person is equal in the system because the government is for the people and by the people. And it was first founded in ancient Greece, but really America revolutionized it into the modern day because before that everybody just really held one king or one queen. And this new idea of having multiple people in the government and people ruling themselves was really revolutionary and something that America started. So the United States government on its own, it was started after the Revolutionary War, where we fought off England and we got our own rights and our own country. In 1787, the states formed the Constitution at the Constitutional Convention. And the Constitution is still around today, and it's basically the law of the land. It is what we follow today in everyday laws. And the Constitution is what really formed our government, and it's still a major part of everyday life today. So again, as I stated, we're more of a democratic republic, almost a hybrid of the two. And so where each individual citizens, as you guys, would go out and vote for a representative, which will then represent you in the local government, state government, or national government. So when you decide who to vote for, you decide based off what they believe. And if you believe in the same things, they will then try to push for those ideas which will help you as a citizen or something that you really want. So those representatives that then pass laws that are good for the people that they're representing. So we're also a federalistic state government, which means that there's a national government, there's a state government, and there's also a local government. There's not one government that makes all the laws for everything. It would be really hard if the national government had to do everything for every state. But instead, the state government does laws that the national government doesn't really have time to oversee. Also, in each of these levels, there are 3 branches of the government, which we'll go over later.
So the 3 branches of government are the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Now, kind of as a basic way as it goes, on the executive branch, that's the branch that the president resides over in the United States, and it's probably one of the more famous branches. It has the president and his entire cabinet, and then at the state level, it has the governor at the head of it. The legislative branch is essentially the Senate and the House of Representatives. So they make the laws and they do things of that sort. And then the judicial branch is like the courts and the legal courts that you'll go through. So first, we'll be starting off with the executive branch. So the executive branch is what enforces U.S. laws. And so members, like I said, are the president, the vice president, secretary of state, secretary of defense, and etc. Now, the presidential powers and kind of a general guideline for what the executive branch does mostly is, for example, the president can order an executive order, and this is something where he can enforce laws and he can bring up new programs that need to be put in times of distress. What the president can also do is he can veto bills. So bills are something that you kind of have right before something gets turned into law. And for something to be turned into law, a proposal like, say, something like raising taxes by 5%, if they wanted to put that into law, they would have to have the President of the United States sign it. And so if you got a big fat finger from this guy like that, and he's not happy about it, he can refuse to sign it and veto the bill, and then that will not become a law. And so you also have the appointment of his cabinet. So the president is able to select his own vice president and the secretaries that reside under him in the executive branch. And he also resides over, for the most part, the foreign affairs of the United States. So that they get to decide a lot about how we interact with places like Israel, China, England, the UK, just all of Europe. Basically, they get to reside over things like that, and they also get to. They're the only branch that can sign on treaties. So things like war treaties and peace treaties are something they can reside over in that.
The next branch is the legislative branch, and it's really almost the most famous, and it's what everybody thinks of when they think of American government, maybe behind the president. But they're really quite a strong branch, and they're what create laws. So the lawmaking process, as we'll learn later today, is kind of confusing, but in the gist of it, a law is proposed to the legislative branch, and then they have to pass it or veto it. And if it passes and then it's passed by the president and the other houses we'll talk about later, then it is passed into law and becomes part of the United States law. And the members of the legislative branch are mostly senators, which every state elects 2 of them. And then there's representatives, which is based on population. So this gives states like Montana, which is smaller, still equal some power, because if it was purely based off representation, places like California would have really no need for Montana, because we would not have any power in the legislative branch. But with this, the Senate gives states their own rights and gives them some more power in the legislative branch. Well, the representatives in the House of Representatives are based off population. And so, again, they make laws for the United States which will rule over us, and then they also make declarations of war. Well, this hasn't happened in a long time because of political reasons, really. This is one of the major purposes of the legislative branch. Also, they have the power to impeach the executive branch, and they keep the executive branch accountable. If the executive branch, as Nick stated earlier, vetoes a bill, the legislative branch can then take it back, and if really 2/3 of the majority of the people believe in the bill, they can overturn it and then send it back to the president, and he has to sign it if they have 2/3, because that majority, they believe that it's good for the citizens of the United States. And these are our 3 people in Congress right now. So we have Senator Daines, who is a Republican. We have Senator John Tester, who is a Democrat. And we have Greg Gianforte, who is a Republican, and he is in the House of Representatives. And he is the newest and actually the richest House of Representatives right now in Washington, D.C.
And if we were doing this in an actual presentation in front of 6th graders, this would be another questioning session where we'd ask them who they think each person is, and then if they do answer correctly, we'd give them a piece of candy.
For a bribe.
A piece of candy.
The judicial branch is made up of all the courts, and their job is to interpret law. And there's different levels, of course. There's a Supreme Court. That's like the court. That's the king of the courts, really. And then there's federal courts, county courts, and state courts. And their powers, when making decisions, are to deem laws constitutional or unconstitutional. When a law is unconstitutional, it directly goes against something that was written in the Constitution. And they decide criminal and civil cases, and they really interpret what is written in the Constitution.
All right, so the federal government, now we're talking about, we just went through the 3 branches of government. Now we need to talk about the 3 levels of government. And this goes into the term that we were talking about earlier called federalism. So at the very top of federalism is, you guessed it, the federal government. Now the federal government is the national government. They're the one that's based in Washington, D.C. over on the East Coast. And what the federal government does is they're kind of the big dog. They have the power over the states and cities. So when, say, Congress, the U.S. Congress with its senators and representatives passes a law, the states have to follow that law because it's a federal law. Now, if a state passes a law, the federal government doesn't necessarily have to follow that law because it's only a law for that state. So essentially, the federal government has power over the state and city governments. And so the federal government includes the President of the United States, the U.S. Congress, including the Senate and the House of Representatives, and then it also includes the Supreme Court, and as well as federal courts too.
So on the tier just below federal level is the state government, and it's almost the exact mirror of the federal government, just on a lower level. So as I'm sure 99% of you know, the Montana's capital is in Helena, just about an hour down the road, and the state government also has the judicial, the executive, and legislative branch, but they're at different names. So instead of having a president, the state of Montana has a governor. Does anybody know? Okay, that would be another question. Might be a candy spot. And we also have a judicial system and a legislative branch. The legislative branch is also composed of a Senate and House of Representatives, which are based on the same theories and ways as the national level. Also, we have a judicial branch. But this judicial branch wouldn't deem a ruling unconstitutional, but it would more deal with criminal cases or civil cases or white collar crime, or stuff that isn't really for the counties to decide, but more on the state level. And they can make state laws that can be signed by the government. These would be stuff such as DUI costs, or driving costs, or fire. Like as an example from now is how much to raise taxes to pay for firefighters with the horrible fire season we had recently. But those state laws can't interfere with national laws. So right now there is a national law that says you cannot have medical marijuana. But many states have gone against this in saying that you can smoke medical marijuana in medical reasons. So that is actually kind of something that's kind of a gray area, and it's something that is kind of illegal for the states to be doing, but the government is turning a blind eye. So that's just an example of something that the states usually don't do, but they have because of politics again. So that's what the state government does on a level, but there is some areas where the state level can't deal with it because of how small the issue is, and for that we have county governments.
Or local governments. This is part of state government. It's it makes up the local government is county commissioners, city council, and they deal with things like parks, roads, local courts, emergency responders, water, sewage, etc. And this is where we can get most involved in our government, is through things like city councils.
So, what is? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so what is a political party? So this would be another spot for questioning to keep kids involved, but we would go into political parties more. So we would kind of give a basic overview of what each of these parties were. Probably not these guys kids. So political parties. The definition of political parties is a group of people who share similar ideas on how government should be run and have similar policies. And these policies may be like what they believe tax rates should be, how they think the federal deficit should be fixed, stuff like that. And so instead of being an individual and trying to take on the rest of the Senate, these political parties will band together and vote in similar ways so they get their own ideas passed. They have much more strength if they work together. They're stronger as a union instead of as an individual. And so they work together and have large groups in government, the two largest of which are the Republicans and Democrats in the United States. But there's also many more, and many believe that the two-party system isn't the way of the best way because it creates gridlock in the Congress. So now would be our time for the interactive, and we will do another video on the interactive, but the whole idea of it is that we split the class into two groups, and that would become the two political parties. We would then give two counselors, per se, to each political party. They would be able to come up with a name, and then we would give them what they believe in, like should they increase recess time or should they increase lunchtime?
Most of the issues have to do with the school itself, or for like something to better Butte too. So
Yes.
they could do kind of anything related to either the school or Butte.
And we hope that would kind of get them excited because they are having an effect on what they could do. And then we would also bring in topics that they could think about, like should there be more bike lanes in Butte or should there be less bike lanes in Butte, something like that. Then we would hold elections based off that. So there would be an election for, I believe, a president, a vice president, a speaker of the House, and a president of the Senate. Was that all? I believe that was all four.
Yeah.
And so those, I'm just going to explain the interactive. Those four would then go into their perspectives. So and then the political parties would then be split in half. So half of political party A and half of political party B would go into the House, and the other half would go into the Senate. And then we would have them talk about bills. We would give them some own bills, and also during the political party's part, we would have them come up with any bills that they believed in. And then we would have them kind of go through the whole process of making a bill into law, having the president sign it, and all that. And we will have another video on that soon.
And then kind of at the end of it, we just kind of wrap it up when time's about to be done, and then we kind of get them back in their seats and everything after the interactive, and then we kind of wrap up the entire session as a whole. We start off we start off the conclusion by talking about how you can make an impact as a student, even as a sixth grader, in Butte and for the country as a whole. So one of the things that they can do is expressing your right to vote. indirectly. So these students, of course, when they're 18, they'll be able to vote. But right now, they can do things like contacting their politicians, telling them what they care about, whether it's about bike lanes or anything anything that has to do with politics in general. And then they can get involved in local government. So they can go and they can help out at different community service opportunities, or they can help clean up parks, or they can simply just talk to their local government officials like the chief executive or different people in the government, and kind of find ways that they can really help out the community, and that you can find ways really where you can get involved with government itself. And then really the biggest thing though that we want to take out of this is that to be a responsible citizen and to really be a civic citizen, it's really important to go out and volunteer. It's important to go out there and really help out the community in different ways, whether you're helping at the food bank or if you're doing just like one-time things with different fundraisers and fun runs and things like that. As a sixth grader, there's a lot you can accomplish just by doing a little bit of community service here and there. And it really is a fun thing to do. You can go out with your friends, have a good time with it, and kind of get a good feeling in your belly too, because you're really going out and helping Butte and even helping your school and the community.
Okay, so that's the end. So this was our first time running through it, so it might not have been perfect. I probably won't talk about marijuana and thing. I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry about that. But I think that's a majority of our video, and I think with the interactive, it will take about an hour. I'm not sure, but thank you very much for looking over this. Thank you.